Congressman, a lot to talk about, but this pace of reopenings that might slow as a result, are you worried that it's also going to slow the recovery?
I think there'll be a little bit of a step back, Neil. And first, thanks for having me on your show. Obviously, it will create some fear for some people, but we just showed in the last few weeks that, particularly with the retail sales and retail sales, and then of course the employment numbers, that the economy is poised to spring back very quickly. So if there is a short pause again, I think it'll be okay. I think optimism will prevail. So I think we'll be okay.
Some of the states are surprised by I guess the sharp nature of the upticks. Texas certainly comes to mind. The hospital bed issue, which seems to be a big issue in states like Arizona, and that they might have rushed this, and that they felt pressure to rush this. Do you think that's true?
No, I don't think so at all. I think what states need to monitor is their ICU bed and their ventilator capacity. And if you look at Tennessee, for example, we've seen an increase in cases, but we have not seen an increase in hospitalization. We're looking at about a 25% utilization of our ventilators in the state, meaning 75% are out there and available. Now, flattening the curve was the goal, not preventing every person from getting the virus. That's impossible. So we should just focus on the right part of the curve, manage the ventilator space in the ICUs, and run the economy based on that.
Congressman, there's been this move afoot ever since the death of George Floyd to come up with some sort of legislation. Republicans are working at it, Democrats are working at it, but the two sides never found, agreeable terms in which to either police departments or protect law and order. And it looks like nothing is going to get done. Is that true?
Well, it certainly speaks of that right now, and what it really shows is I'm not sure the Democrats care very much about police reform. What they care about is campaign talking points. Tim Scott who is an African American, had a passionate presentation of his bill on the floor of the Senate and offered the Democrats the opportunity to make multiple amendments to his bill, meaning he would sit down and work with them. They walked away 100%, meaning they essentially voted against stopping chokeholds. They voted against, making lynching a federal crime. They voted against those things. They wouldn't even work with him. And in the House, just now, they passed a bill with no amendments from the Republicans. They wouldn't even allow debate. So it's as if all they're looking for is a campaign talking point. They're basically using people to empower themselves. That's what they're doing. It's insane.
All right, well, not surprising, Congress, they come back at you and say of Republicans that, with the exception of some of the provisions you mentioned, like getting rid of the chokehold stuff and all, and setting up a database of officers who's just sort of moved from precinct to precinct if they're fired and all that, there was very little else that was done in that serious reform. And even when it came to policing the bad police, you didn't do enough of. I'm just wondering who's ever right on this, and I understand how politics goes. Is it fair to say that we're not going to see legislation now, that looks very unlikely?
Well, hopefully as these, efforts between the two chambers of the Congress fail, the Republicans who actually allowed the Democrats to present amendments, and the House who chose not to have amendments, you got this bypass or impasse. Hopefully after that happens, everybody will sit down and we'll negotiate. But we offered the negotiations on the Senate side. They didn't offer negotiations on the House side. And I think that shows a real lack of interest in doing the right thing. I mean, you look at their history on justice reform. I mean, for years, Democrats talked about that. Republican Donald Trump got in and got it done. And now they're probably afraid that we'll get it done on police reform. So they're not negotiating.